I want to tell you that after we have just received body blow after body blow from auto insurers, pushing rates higher and higher and higher, we're in a time right now that has basically exhausted itself. And insurers are looking more and more, depending on the state, at actually lowering rates some. Not like the rates are going back to where they were 3 years ago, but the big run-up seems to be over and now treading water and even some price cuts. So what that means right now, there's more gap between what insurers are charging. Now, fact, there were a number of insurers that were losing billions of dollars. I know, don't cry me a river for them, but they need to make money to stay in business. And a lot of auto insurers were losing huge money because they got caught so badly by the increase in the cost of vehicles, the increase in the value of used vehicles, the increase in the cost of parts for vehicles, and for repairs and body shop work. It all just went crazy high. And they played catch up and were pushing these rates up. And now things have moderated some on the cost front. And now in turn, that's being reflected more and more in auto insurance rates. Some insurers are just going to keep using momentum with you to keep charging what they're charging. That's why you go shop the market and see what you can do. I also wanted to talk to you about something that is like really kind of out there. And it's something that there's enough millions of miles of data on Waymos and on FSD, full self-drive Teslas, that the data shows that the accident rate when a Waymo is driving or a Tesla is on FSD, that the accident rate drops by 90%, 90%. And all of us think we're above average drivers, but other people are terrible. The reality is humans are not great drivers unless they're a professionally trained driver, which is like nobody. So these vehicles that do the FSD in the Tesla world, the Waymos, because the accident rate is so much lower, we're going to see some very positive trends. I alluded to this about 6 weeks ago, that as the vehicle fleet in the United States automates, and you and I aren't driving, we're just sitting there, that the terrible road fatality rate we have is going to decline gradually over a number of years as the fleet changes over. But also, there's an opportunity, speaking of auto insurance, to save a lot of money. Lemonade, which is an insurer that charges you based on how much you drive and how you drive, has new experimental rates that they are trying to implement, or some stories say they already have, others say that this is going to happen. You'll find out if you live in Arizona, California, or Oregon. Lemonade has a program with Tesla where you can just download the Lemonade app and it can track mile per mile whether you, as a Tesla driver, are driving on full self-drive, which means you just sit there and the car does everything. And that the insurance per mile you're driving, where you're not driving and the car is, the insurance will be a little bit more than nominally free. It'll cost almost nothing for those miles because the risk to them drops 90% of you being in an accident. And this is something that Lemonade wants to do in all the states they're in. They're in about a dozen states around the country, hoping to keep adding more. And Tesla, offers auto insurance in a bunch of states. And I imagine that they will go to a system where when you're on FSD, full self-drive, that you'll pay lower prices per mile for auto insurance. How does this work? with per mile insurers. There are now several in the country. You pay a base rate based on your driver profile driving history. And then you pay a per mile every mile you're on the road, because obviously if you're not on the road, you can't have a wreck. So you pay per mile, and the automation improves the safety so much. And I'll share a little story that happened to me, because I drive according to the records on my Tesla, about 90% of my miles I'm driving FSD. So I was at a corner. I was getting ready to take a right turn. The car was. And then all of a sudden it abruptly stopped because a vehicle, I was getting ready to go southbound, a vehicle coming northbound made an illegal U-turn right there. And me driving, I was looking left. If I was driving, I would have pulled right into that vehicle making the illegal left. But the car with the FSD has cameras everywhere and stopped and prevented that accident. I mean, that was a perfect example of where the automation was superior to what I could do as a human. So a lot of good stuff after a lot of bad years with driving and premiums and all that. Good stuff, I think, is on our way. And yes, Krista, this is an example.